Hey guys! Today I am going to be doing a Draw My Life video. I've been watching lots of other YouTubers do theirs, and so I figured it was time I did mine. Let's go! I was born with the name Caleb Joshua Gardner, but I went by Caleb Joshua Herwig. I was born on June 8th, 1994 in Iowa City, Iowa. It's kind of hard for me to explain my family tree, but let me start here. I was conceived by my mother, Rachel, and my father, Jim. My dad had been married previously, so my mom and I lived with him and his 3 other children. Growing up with half-siblings was hard, because they felt as if my mom and I weren't really part of their family. So my siblings and my father's parents pretty much shunned my mom and I from the family, and even had elaborate plans to eliminate us, if you get what I mean. I was picked on a lot by my siblings. Since I was so young, I don't remember a lot of it, but I do remember them not letting me play sports with them, and they let the animals pee on all my toys. This went on for a few years. When I was about 3, I guess my dad started to pick up on what was happening in the family. He wanted my mom and me to be safe, because he really did love us. So for our safety, he sent us away from the house. Indefinitely. My mom had been married once before this marriage as well, but she didn't want to go back to her first husband after having just left him a few years prior. So my mom and I traveled around to various homeless shelters for a few years. I don't remember a lot from those shelters. I do remember, though, that at one of the places we stayed at, they had a blanket that hung from one of the doorways, so I would pretend that I was Aladdin, and that the blanket was the front door to my house. I also remember a lady at one of the shelters that felt bad that I was such a small kid sleeping on a cot, so she made me a hand-knit pillow and blanket to sleep with. I still have those to this day. A few years passed by, and now it is the year 1999. I was 5 years old. My mom's first husband had lost his job at Van Dag Tire Company. He was offered a job working for TSA at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, so he and his kids decided that they were going to move to Texas. Since they were moving, he had offered to let my mom and me live with them in their new house in Bedford. My mom, begrudgingly, agreed. So, my mom and I got our things, left the shelter life behind, and moved to Bedford. After 2 years of not knowing where I was going to be living the next day, I was finally going to be living in a real house again. I left my rough family history behind me and joined my new family, the Neffs. There was my new dad, Mac, and my 8 new older siblings. These siblings treated me like I was their full brother, not just a half-brother. I felt like a Neff. So much so, that was the name that I went by in school for as long as I can remember. My papers from 2nd grade even say Neff on them. I wasn't able to legally change my name until I was 18, but when I turned 18 I had my name legally changed to Caleb Joshua Herwig Neff, so that I could have Neff be my legal last name. I remember walking into that house in Bedford for the first time. I saw all the cardboard boxes stacked up high to the ceiling, and since I was just 5 years old, I thought that the boxes were so high that they were going to topple over me. Because of the size of the house, my mom and my new dad Mac had to share the master bedroom. She didn't feel comfortable sleeping in the same room as her ex-husband, so they slept in separate beds with a divider in between them. They were nothing more than roommates at that point, until 2005 when they decided to finally get remarried. Later that year, I began kindergarten. I didn't go to preschool, so this was my first time going to an actual school. I remember my first day. I hated it there. I did not want to be in school at all. When my mom left me that first day, I cried and cried, begging my mom not to leave me with the evil Mrs. Gibson. Which, thinking back on it now, she was the sweetest teacher ever. I only have one other memory from kindergarten. We were all sitting on the storytime rug listening to Mrs. G read us Green Eggs and Ham or something, I think. I guess I was really tired because I fell asleep on the storytime rug. When I finally woke up, everyone is coloring and doing their crafts, and 2 hours had passed. I got up quietly and just went to my seat. I didn't say a word to anyone the rest of the day. I guess my narcolepsy started at a really young age. In elementary school, to no surprise, I was the awkward kid. My best friend in elementary school liked to pretend she was Scooby-Doo, and I would pretend to be Shaggy, and we would go around pretending to solve mysteries together. In 2nd grade, my mom took me with her on a business trip to Ghana, Africa. I was gone for about 2 weeks, and my first day back I wore the African-style clothing that was made for me while I was there. I looked like a dork, but I didn't care. I thought it was cool. In 3rd grade, I would sit in math class pretending my colored pencils were rocket ships. I guess I was pretty obnoxious with it, because one day my teacher had to ask me to stop being so loud with my rocket ships and to start doing actual work. I was so mad at the teacher for ruining my super fun space adventure. Most of my friends growing up were girls. Girls were always nicer to me than the boys were. I didn't like riding bicycles and playing sports. I would have rather played with Barbies and played house with my girlfriends. I actually remember getting my first Barbie for Christmas when I was about 5 years old. I was ecstatic. The movie Toy Story 2 had just come out, so I decided to name her Tour Guide Barbie, and would mimic the voices from the movie when I played with her. Growing up with girls as friends caused me to act a little more flamboyant than most of the guys, so the other boys would call me gay and fag growing up. It was kind of hard to deal with as a kid. When I was in middle school, I went from being the outgoing awkward kid to the super quiet awkward kid. I didn't talk to hardly anyone in middle school, and I didn't have a lot of friends outside of the few that I had made in band class. I moved a lot when I was a kid, and I think it was not being in a solid environment that led me to be socially awkward, since my circle of friends was constantly changing. Although, with all the moving around and meeting new people, I now have almost 1,700 friends on Facebook. In 6th grade, my mom bought us our first Apple product ever, a MacBook Pro. We got it right before they remodeled though, so it was a big, clunky piece of poop MacBook Pro. I would play on it all the time, and I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. One thing I discovered about the MacBook Pro was its iMovie program. My nieces, nephews, and I learned how to make amateur videos and began creating those for about a year or so. Most of those videos have been destroyed now, but the first video we ever made, which was named Celio, is still on my MySpace profile. Making these at-home videos was a way for me to express the outgoing weird kid that I had locked away inside me during middle school. The summer before my 7th grade year, I was really into the games Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. I began to look up trailers for the games, which led me to this website called YouTube. When I first found YouTube, I thought it was an adults-only website that I had found access to, so when my younger niece came in and saw me on it, I immediately clicked away from the website. I didn't tell anyone I knew about the website for a long time. I thought it was a downscale porn site that I had secretly found, although I only used YouTube to look up video game trailers and AMVs. Regardless, being the sheltered child that I was, I felt guilty for keeping this porn site from my parents and not telling them about it. During my 7th grade year, after I realized that YouTube wasn't a porn site, I found out that I could make my own YouTube channel and upload my own videos. I began uploading these home videos that I had been making to YouTube on a channel called Nefers13. The first one I ever posted was a video of me lip-syncing and dancing to the song Barbie Girl by Aqua. When I was first uploading videos, I didn't know how to enable sound, so the video was just a silent film of me dancing. My dad found the video and was not happy with me for doing it. I never really put anything of value on that channel. I just put random videos of me doing whatever I was into at the moment. Because of YouTube, I was able to use producing videos as a way to break out of the shell that I had created for myself a little more and more. Well, during my 7th grade year, I started to lose faith in a lot of things. We got in 8 or 9 car accidents that year, one of them almost killing both of my parents. They still suffer from that accident today. I also almost burned down the house on New Year's at the beginning of the year. It was my first time lighting candles, so my mom let me leave them lit for New Year's. I forgot about them when I went to bed, and one of the tablecloths caught on fire. Luckily, my sister was still awake, or we would have lost our whole house. Things just seemed to be falling apart left and right for me. I started to lose faith in God's existence, and I thought my life was worth nothing at that point. I was just that awkward band kid with no friends. I wasn't popular, I wasn't good at sports, people would call me all sorts of mean things. I thought the only way to make things better was to hurt myself, so I began slitting my wrists and cutting off circulation to my arms with rubber bands. I still have scars from both of those things. I was too much of a wimp to actually commit suicide, but I definitely did try to attempt it a few times. Things were bad. I wondered how an almighty God would allow such bad things to happen in my life. It just didn't make sense to me. In the midst of all these bad things happening, my life took a confusing turn. Let me rewind a little bit. I had always had bad headaches growing up, but doctors refused to take scans on my brain to discover why. They said that I had to be 12 years old to do that. Well, when I finally was 12 years old, we got in that bad car accident that almost killed my parents. Remember that? That accident, however, led the doctors to discover something significant about my brain. They found out I had a cyst in my cerebellum and diagnosed me with what they call Dandy-Walker syndrome. And so, on October 6, 2006, I had brain surgery to remove the cyst and had a shunt put in to drain the recurring part of the cyst to my stomach. It was a good thing I had the surgery when I did, because the doctors told me that if we hadn't found it when we did, in just a few months the cyst would have been so big that my brain would have essentially popped. One of the worst events in my family's life actually ended up saving mine. It took me a while to recover after the surgery. They only shaved off parts of my head, so I had a funny looking hairdo until the chopped off hair grew back. They couldn't just shave my whole head because I had a tube in my head now, and there would be a random bump sticking out of my head like a cartoon. It was so embarrassing walking the school halls with my head half shaved. My sister, who's 5 years older than I am, noticed kids were starting to make fun of me for my head and would walk behind me in the halls so that kids wouldn't stare and laugh. After the surgery, I started to regain a little bit of faith in life again after almost dying. I mean, who gets told that their brain was about to implode and doesn't feel at least a little more grateful that they're still alive, right? I was still that awkward, antisocial kid, but I was slowly beginning to gain that confidence back in myself that I had had in elementary school. In 8th grade, I began doing a Pokemon podcast with a friend of mine I met online. Her name is Annie, from Maryland. Along with the podcast, I made another YouTube channel called Dexter's Database, so that we could post blogs and other Pokemon-related things that corresponded with our podcast. The podcast was short-lived, but I kept using this new Dexter's Database channel to post Pokemon battles. I also used this channel to experiment with a craft I had discovered called vlogging. When I got to high school, my parents told me that we were going to stay in whatever place we ended up in until I graduated, so that I could at least have a somewhat normal high school experience. That place we ended up in was a small town north of Dallas known as Anna, Texas. Go Coyotes! When I was a freshman, I was still that awkward, quiet new kid that I had turned into during middle school. I was just an older version of him now. Puberty was finally starting to hit, and so I began getting really bad acne. I was insecure and self-conscious, so I began wearing makeup to cover up my blemishes. I also went through a phase where I dyed the front tips of my hair red, I wore lots of black and pink, and I was really into handmade big paper bracelets. Needless to say, kids were scared of me at my new high school. This went on until about halfway through my sophomore year. Around that time, I figured it was time to be done with making Pokemon videos. I realized that vlogging was what I liked to do the most, and so I created yet another new YouTube channel that I called Random Snips. Through my Random Snips channel, I was able to start truly expressing my thoughts and opinions through these vlogs that I was so into making. And by the summer after my sophomore year, I realized it was about time to break free of that person that I had become. I realized through my YouTube channel that I could be making a difference in people's lives, rather than just hiding away being this reserved kid that I knew I wasn't. And so, going into my junior year, I made the decision that I was going to start living for other people, rather than myself. It has been one of the most rewarding decisions I've ever made in my life. Unfortunately, sometime around my junior year, I decided to delete all my Random Snips videos and didn't post for a little bit after that. Junior and senior year went by, and I blossomed in all sorts of ways. I was the drum major of the marching band, I got the lead role in our school's production of Aladdin, I got my first part-time job as a waiter, and I even got into playing sports again for the first time since my brain surgery. Once I made my life about helping others, my life had changed in drastic ways. I realized that by making other people happy by providing myself as a source for joy and kindness, then I, in turn, was more happy and kind to people. I was a social butterfly, and I was finally happy with my life after being so depressed for about 4 years. During my senior year, I knew I had to start applying to colleges and taking my college entrance exams. I knew that there was only one university that I really wanted to go to, and that was Baylor University in Waco, Texas. It was the only school that I applied to. So I took the ACT, and I got a 21 out of 36 score. I knew it was an awful score, but I had to send it in then if I was going to have any hope of turning in an early application. When I heard back from Baylor, I didn't get in. I was going to have to take summer school beforehand in order to be able to attend. I freaked out. This was my dream school and the only school that I had applied to, so I knew that I had to get my test score up. I took the SAT this time, and my score still was not high enough. I ended up taking a total of 4 tests, I think, before I had scores high enough to be admitted. But I finally was, and so once graduation came, I said sayonara to Anna and made way for Waco. And that's where I am now. The beginning of my freshman year of college was kind of rough. I was, yet again, in a new environment, and since I was now an outgoing, awkward kid like I was in elementary school, it was hard for me to find friends at first. I still, to this day, would say that I don't have a core group of friends that I can call best friends yet. But everyone here is so nice and friendly, I'm not too worried about finding my soulmates just yet. I struggled my first semester in school, because I actually had to study for classes now, unlike in high school, where I graduated top 10% of my class by sitting on my butt all day. But things have improved since last semester, and I'm slowly starting to learn more and more how this whole college thing works. I'm creating a new life for myself here. I love it here, and I couldn't imagine myself anywhere else at this point in my life. I definitely had a rough childhood, but I think all of it was necessary to get me to where I am today. I've learned and grown from everything that has happened in my past, and so in that regard, I'm glad I grew up with such a rough background. I now know why God endured me through all those rough things as a child. I can use my previous experiences as ways to help others that may be going through what I went through as a kid. That is why I've decided to pursue a degree in social work, so that I can devote my life to helping others succeed. It's what I'm most passionate about. I would say that I owe a lot of my growing up to YouTube. Because of YouTube, I was able to find ways to express myself and transform myself from that quiet, weird kid I was in middle school to the outgoing, slightly less weird kid that I am today. I know I'm not famous on YouTube right now, but it is my hope that I may be able to impact the few people who do watch my videos. To know that I may be able to brighten at least one person's day through my videos means a whole lot to me. Well, that's pretty much my life up to this point. There were some things I left out of this video, such as my trip to Japan, going to Disney World for my high school's nationally ranked robotics team, and traveling halfway across the country to meet an ex of mine that I met and dated through the internet. But I tried to include all the major points of my life to this point. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to see more videos like this from me. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Until next time, stay awesome, guys. Bye. Okay, I would just like you guys to see where this is being filmed right now. Okay, so this is the board I was filming on, right? I'm in my laundry room. This is the laundry room at Baylor. Yeah, so got a really high-tech setup. Everything's going great. Got my script up here. My tripod, and there's the dry erase board that I've been filming on. Yeah, so I had some people come like in and out doing laundry, and I even took a chance to do my own laundry, and it was just really awkward because they were walking in and I was just like drawing on the board and I was just like, oh hi. It was super awkward. Well, that's all for now. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Ow.